It's the 23rd of the 6th, 2022, and there's another upload that is relevant for me to share with regard to my role for a peaceful and harmonious society and for safeguarding and securing the security net of people's livelihoods and well-being, as has been my part of my objective in society, as a part of my role and as a part of my work in recovery advocacy and crime prevention, etc., etc., etc. So there are known liabilities in my proximity. I see them from day to day, and there are, as I've mentioned in previous uploads, obligations of the elected representatives of Dáil Éireann. Is it a 4 to 7 year term that they have? They're temporary representatives of an old country, and they have obligations to old blood. My family were founding fathers, and they helped build this country. I have helped reform this country. And the Taoiseach, how are you this morning? I'd like to remind you that there's a little breach that's quite extensive and quite dangerous with regard to the offences that my little baby boy since 2017 and I have been experiencing due to very committed, very preoccupied citizens of this country with offending the Constitution. Now, as the Taoiseach, you have an obligation to defend and respect the Constitution and the law-abiding citizens of this country and the mothers of this country. Mothers and children are always prioritised, Taoiseach. And I'm directing this specifically towards the elected representative of this country that is described as a leader. Now, I've done leadership studies in education, and I think I'd know if I'd have to correct a bottoon, a mistake in my corrections in a child's copy if I had such an error caused. So that's just a minor little, that's a classroom perspective. But when it comes to a country that's been facing lockdown, as a consequence of my work as a recovery advocate and as an avatar and as a royal, the lockdown since 2019, when individuals started to cause offence to my privacy and impose upon me and decided to roll out a few false facts and tall tales and jeopardise their own reputations with their own bad behaviours, while offending my clean track record. I think this situation has come to a point where known liabilities in my proximity and the obligations of the government being unmet is another repeat performance of the problems that already started in 2017, 2018. So there's been loss of life in this circumstance, and life is precious. And there's no life more precious than the next or the other. And the failure to prevent harm to life or causing intentional hazard to life, especially innocent life, like a child or a mother, I'm prioritising the fact of women and children's rights in this particular instance due to what my son and I have been tolerating in this country that owes us so much. That people have thought it within their remit and their realm of possibility to stroll into my life and my privacy and to cause harm, undue harm, and to stroll on off merrily into the sunset are misleading themselves into a false sense of security and disrespecting the security I and my purpose and my recovery advocacy brought about in society. There was lockdown as a consequence in 2019 due to my work. I and my initiative of recovery advocacy saved people's lives. and the liabilities in my proximity with no right to be have jeopardized lives. Now, anyone with logic and sense and good mental health would know to be on the right side of the fence. The idea of retaliation of repeat offenders against the Constitution aren't helping themselves in the future with spiraling their wrongdoings out of control, especially when they have no basis or substance or validity to what they're doing. It's called insanity. It's repeating the cycle. And that's not helpful, especially, as I've mentioned, with regard to the innocent child I gave birth to. So there are individuals in my proximity, and the government hasn't fulfilled its obligations to my royal bloodline, but it has no problem going onto my property. The individuals, I might warn you, that with what my child and I are and what we are from, are not supporting you on our farms in Kilflynn and Ardfert. And from every aspect and context of the Constitution and the Declaration and all that went before then, I might remind you, you are not welcome on to my farms in Ardfert and Kilflynn. Any individuals causing me undue pressure, stress, or damage, harm, loss, any of those kind of factors, anyone with those kind of objectives to be disruptive and disharmonious with a pacifist and a humanitarian, might be reminded of the fortuity that has come about as a consequence of this person. I hate for people to be misleading themselves or suffering from a short memory or telling themselves stories that aren't real. The reality is, Taoiseach, you have a job down in County Kerry to fulfil your duty, your seat. To keep your seat, Taoiseach, you have to do your job. You don't do your job, you lose your seat. Your credibility goes, your reputation goes. Isn't that what they say? Isn't that what they say? So the thing about it is, people feeding off my experiences, living off my work, living off my property, that's not helpful. That doesn't safeguard people's seats up in Doyle, the house up in Doyle Erin. That's how people get demoted. And people that have been impinging and imposing and intruding upon my work as an educator, the professional losses have been inestimable. As a teacher alone, I had to travel to the UK due to these liabilities operating in this community since 2006. I had to travel to Germany for work. Do you know what I mean? I thrive on, I love education. So this morning I'm educating some people that mightn't have the full facts of the circumstances or the reality of the situation, that might be deluding themselves or misleading themselves down a garden path on my property where they're not welcome. Those that are up in Doyle Erin, that are fully conscious of the reality and that aren't working in line with the Constitution, lose their credibility in the country. They're disrespecting the Constitution and the democracy. So you're not avoiding or evading, and you're not welcome. I have to reiterate I am fully aware there are people on my farms, but you have to be aware you're not safe on property you don't own. And any individual discussing my marriage of 2015, that I have to keep reiterating due to the obnoxious audacity, it's absolutely outrageous that there are non-entities in this community that think they're going to change that, and that. And bingo, off we go, up the hill and down the mountain. No, there are people not in a position to rearrange the dates of my marriage or my child's birth or my identity, my face. Anyone looking to get plastic surgery, thinking they're going to wear my shoes, I'd hate to remind you, you're out of sync, you're out of line, you're out of place. Identity theft is occurring as well in this scenario. So it's a very sick issue that any self-respecting professionals would malaise society with. It's a malaise, it's a societal malaise, it's a spiritual malaise. And anyone that has taken the Hippocratic Oath, I hope you know, you're not fooling anybody not doing your job properly. As I've said, if you can't fulfill your duties, etc., off you go. So the facts of the matter are, there are people being cheeky where they have no right to be, and where they owe debts. I can't stress this enough since 2006. And the issue of agencies in this situation that have had their information access by these liabilities that have caused my child and I offence, they have accessed people's information illegally and lawfully. And they've altered that information also. So that's a problem. The information acquisition of information unlawfully, without consent or procedures or protocol, especially of a royal, where there are debts owed since 2006, I might add, that there's obligations. And then the cheek of it to literally withhold a child from me illegally and walk onto property where you are certainly after offending and damaging the light of my body. I'm wondering about mental health these days. COVID-19 is so important. It is a huge turning point, and world reform has occurred. And in Tralee, the southwest of Ireland, there are leaders up in Dáil Éireann that are not doing the right thing. They're not working in accordance with sanity and sobriety and rationale and logic. They're going against the mill and the grain, and they're not deciphering the chaff from the wheat. Now, there are people coming in and around my privacy, proximity, property, etc., ignoring protocol. That is a problem, and it isn't tolerable. Now, if the Taoiseach wants to cause a bigger problem by not doing his job, we already know the casualties since he heard from me in 2017. His House of Representatives heard from me in 2017. And we already know the casualties that have come about as a consequence of that. So if the Taoiseach doesn't want to do his job, you know how it is. I'm a royal. You know what I mean? I've made the point before but €208 roughly per week from the Social Protection Office, 2 beautiful farms being subject to fraud, a beautiful child absent from my care, reparations from the Department of Health not forthcoming. The Department of Health has been having exploitative experiences, hasn't it? So the European Court of Human Rights is fully aware of me. I'm a humanitarian pacifist, and I don't like people disrespecting me or other families. So if you can't respect people, I think you need to go back and re-educate yourself. It's as simple as that. There's common courtesy and there's etiquette. And then there's a compass about what's right and wrong, north and south, east and west. So if you can't work with that, then I have concerns about your calibre and character and credentials. So on that note, this is for the attention of the United Nations. There are liabilities in the southwest of Ireland that are in contempt, in breach, and in violation. And you have heard from me since 2019, and I'm wondering why I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment with no hot running water. I haven't had a shower in months. And a situation that is just inexcusable. And individuals being cheeky on farms where they certainly have no right to be. And a child missing. This is scandalous. So the good doctors might remind themselves that they have no remit with me. But those that have been over preoccupied, I hope you look after your mental health. If I need any doctors, I'll give them a call. But people not in remit, that haven't been doing their job, really aren't safe with more offences against my bodily integrity or my identity or anything of the sort. And if my abode isn't safe, I don't know whose home wouldn't be safe. That's very expensive old family farming that they're landing themselves on. So I would be advisable for people to mind their homes and their children. It's come to that stage. It's really sad what's happened. And it's really rude. It's very rude what's gone on. So if you can't respect codes of behaviour, you know what happens. So some people might be well off to mind their own roofs. Do you know what I mean? And if you're an aspirant hoping to become of my experience, you might do well to respect it before you think you take from it. There have been people helping themselves, exploiting and monetising as well. And I think NEFIT knows what I'm talking about. So I hope the United Nations is getting a clear picture of what's going on in the Southwest. And I hope it would respect the declaration at least. If it doesn't respect my child and I hopefully the declaration will have some kudos from this ordeal. It's absolutely scandalous what's going on.